Hello and welcome to English 231. This video will help you to become acquainted with the online course and how to navigate each module and part of it. So let's start with the home page. I've made it so that this is your home page, this screen, the syllabus screen. That way you can see our printable syllabus and the course objectives and descriptions as soon as you log on. Now if you want to print out this syllabus so that you have it with you, feel free. This document does not have the weekly schedule on it. We'll get to that in just a moment. But let's take a minute to go through the syllabus together so that you're familiar with that. So my name is Sarah Wagner, or Sarah Moore Wagner, or it'll show up on your screen as Sarah Moore, which is my maiden name. But any of those you can call me. Sarah is obviously okay with me. But as for office hours, I can Skype for office hours. If you want to meet me out for coffee or something like that, just send me an email and let me know and we can make that happen too. But make sure you read through this syllabus document. I put a little prose poem there from Mary Ruffle about kind of my idea behind the class, which is that we're going to focus on three aspects that I believe make a good writer, which are reading, writing, and revision, all of those being equally important in the writing process. We can't be good writers without being good readers and without looking at our work with a critical eye. Also, I talk about in the syllabus, reading makes us kind of better human beings, better engaged with the world, with the ideas, with the structures of writing that have come before us. We learn the tools and the craft of writing, which makes us better writers in general. We also learn how to recognize good writing through reading, and that'll help us be better critics for our peers. Writing is the next part. I have a quote from Charles Wright, the poet, who says, "The secret of language is the secret of disease," which, as I mentioned, is really dark, but the goal of language should be to spread, that it will spread and invade and perhaps destroy, to change things the same way that disease does. We want our writing to be important. So in order to get to that level of writing being something that fundamentally has the power to change something, then we must learn to revise, the quote's been attributed to so many people, but I believe it was Faulkner, said to slaughter your darlings, to kind of cut out and get down to the core of things, to not be too attached to what we write so that we can kind of meld it into something beautiful. And that's why I said the third and most perhaps important part is revision. So in this class, not only will you read and write, you'll be asked to give and receive feedback on your writing and to substantially revise these pieces as many times as you can, ultimately until you come up with a good finished product. And I have had people who've taken this class get these stories and works that they do in this class published. So be open to revising, to changing, and to polishing so that you can infect or inspire others with your writing. So let's take a minute to talk about how this online class would work. Of course, if we were in class together, we would be bringing these poems and stories and essays into the class to share, and then we'd sit in a circle and people would comment and talk about not only the writing that we're bringing, but also the different stories. Sorry, excuse me. And pieces of writing that we're bringing. That's how we do the workshop. Of course, we can't do that here. So I've tried to set it up in Blackboard in a way that kind of makes it mirror that in some ways. So we'll have personal blogs and discussion posts. So that the discussion posts will work kind of like a class session, where the personal blogs will be kind of like a journal where you're connecting with me one-on-one. You'll connect with the class in the blogs and with me in our class in the discussions and with me in the blogs. And then you'll also hear from me in the weekly video lecture. Sometimes it'll be me, sometimes it'll be a podcast or something like that. So that'll be kind of what's happening weekly. And then towards the end of each module, you'll have the workshop, and I'll show you this on the screen in just a moment. But the workshop basically, it borrows from the Iowa method of kind of sitting in a circle. The artist does not speak, and the rest of the class discusses the writing. Now, for this class, you'll be divided into smaller groups, and I'll expect you to read all of the stories or poems or essays of the other members of your group, and then to leave comments for every single one of them. And then you'll also be required to come back in later in the week and leave follow-up comments. So kind of 2 rounds of commenting on these stories so that you can give ample feedback for each person. So as I mentioned here, you'll provide written response, you'll offer a paragraph, I'll review your comments. You'll also be required to leave follow-up. And then at the end of each unit, you'll also have a genre exam, which I'll talk about when we go through it. And then your final project is a chapbook project. So basically what you'll do is you'll revise your short story, your poem, and your creative nonfiction piece into a mini book. And with an introduction where you tell me how you've grown as a writer throughout the course. You should have the required textbook, which is Garden of Forking Paths, an anthology for creative writers. That information is listed there. There are also various other texts and poems that I'll be attaching to Blackboard. Sometimes changing some of these out. Not these, but the smaller ones, depending upon what I see your interest is on the discussion board. So for instance, if we're studying fiction and I notice that you're all really interested in the horror genre, I'll bring in some of that so that you can look at that. So be aware of that those may change somewhat. But you can just read through the learning outcomes and assessment and all of that for yourself. You can see that the chapbook is 40%. That's the revised pieces. So you should be thinking about, so for instance, we'll do fiction first. And when you get your comments back, you should start then thinking about revisions so that you're not just kind of revising all 3 pieces at the very end. Remember, that's a large chunk of your grade. For the attendance policy, you must do things on time. You must be present in the discussions. If you miss a deadline for a review in a literary magazine, like I say here, you miss the opportunity to be published. It's gone. So keep your deadlines in this class because you won't get commentary from your peers or from me if you're late. And I won't accept that late work because we're kind of all working together at the same time and on a revision process, and we're kind of moving on to the next thing right after we finish the previous. Another thing is, don't write new things. That's really important because, as I mentioned in my introductory video, part of the reason for us taking this class is that we can keep writing, that we can, be inspired. And if you're just kind of turning in old things, then you're not really taking full advantage of the course. So read through the plagiarism and all of the services available from the university, all of that at the end of the syllabus there. Make sure you have a good idea of that. Let's look now at the course. So this is the home page, as I mentioned. All of what I just went through is divided into its own folders. One place you might want to look is the course calendar, which has the weekly schedule. So if you click on this, it'll open a document that you can print out. As I mentioned, keep in mind about the readings to always be checking the modules instead of just this. And speaking of modules, here are the modules. This will look a little different for you because I have more of these menu items than you do. But basically, here are the modules. You'll want to click first on Introduction, which shows you the Monday, the start of the week, what that date is. So you'll watch the video lecture for week 1, which you're doing. You'll do your introductory discussion post, which are always due on Wednesday. Comments are due on Fridays. And then you'll read through the rest of the materials here. This is kind of what you need to do this week. And you'll also do your first blog post. How you do that is to come over here and you'll see personal blogs. Click on that. Go to the personal reading blog, and this kind of describes what's required of this blog. Basically, you can do whatever you want as long as it's at least 300 words and you show me that you've done the writing. So if you want to write a poem about the story that we just read and then explain why you wrote that, fine. So you know, anything as long as you are mentioning the writing in some way. You could even be inspired by it and kind of do your own story off of it using a similar style. Then I can see that you've done the reading. Or you can just kind of talk about what you thought about the reading if that's easier for you. This is your place, remember, to connect with me. So whenever you see that your blog post is due, come to the personal blog and post that. And you can reach the discussions through here. There's a link. But you can also go over here to discussions, and you can see that your week 1 discussion is here. This is to post your introduction, and I've put my introductory video here too if you want to see that. Of course, it's already on this page also. So that's kind of how to navigate week 1, and then you'll notice that this is only 1 week. Next week we'll be starting fiction, so you'll see there's week 2 through 5 here, and then you just click on each folder, and it's similar to what you saw in the introduction. So there's the first start date, video lecture, what you need to do and what you need to read, and a blog post. So be sure you're staying on top of that. Be sure you're checking online and not just printing something out and following that. Be sure you're watching these lectures because they'll really help you. And remember that I'm always here if you send me an email, or my phone number is on my instructor info page. You could send me a text, give me a call, any of that. I am here for you. So here's to a wonderful semester.